guys, welcome to another Ikebukuro West Gate Park review breakdown, whatever it is we do here, as well as appreciating Noodles and good boys, very good boys, and girls. This week's episode is the Beastly Reunion. Before we get into the boring stuff, you know how it goes. Make sure you guys are liked and subscribed. I have a present for you guys. In 2 days, on the 10th, or 1 day depending on when you're watching this video, I will be having a video go up. This video will have my top 3 anime of the full season. It will also have what I plan to watch and review next season in winter 2021. So make sure you guys are subscribed so you don't miss a thing. Be like Aerosmith, don't miss anything, guys. There is a Discord channel for you guys to subscribe to. This will allow you to get a notification sent to your phone whenever there is a video going up on the channel. It also will be a place for us to natter and build a community once we get a little bit bigger as a channel. We're still in the baby stages, so we're not quite there yet, but it will be a place I plan to do things with a lot later on. Let us begin, and I hope everybody here is well. This week's episode, we open with beautiful orange vibrant sunset. We have a speech about balance and how about like the justice system of wrongdoings. This is the episode which is definitely the eye for an eye, where we get to see Makoto, our boy, listening to some classical music where he is approached by a lady called Chihiro, and she basically just shows him a picture of a boy and says, please smash this guy's leg in. She goes even further to say, you make it so he can never walk again, and that is where we cut to our OP. I do love our OP. The OP has definitely grown on me since the start. So we know that Chihiro wants revenge. I've got to say, it's pretty extreme. Just initially coming off the bat without any more information, it just seems so extreme that she wants to ruin somebody's life. But of course, this episode wants to give us some backstory and why she has jumped to such an extremity. We find out that Chihiro works in a Westgate shop where her brother was attacked by a culprit. And this section is done in black and white. I really like the fact that to mark the past, we see everything in black and white visuals. The culprit smashes in her brother's leg and ends up stealing a measly 3,000 yen, which is the equivalent to £30, I believe. I think you just knock off a zero when it comes to that. Or it could be £300. I think it might be 30 because it'd be a bit weird if he was carrying around £300 on him. I like the fact that we get the milk splattering, which basically replicates the blood. So he wouldn't be bleeding from his leg being smashed in anyway. They're using it, and the way it splatters out, it looks a bit more striking. So it looks like there's blood on the floor. The culprit did go to jail, but because of his age, he ends up getting a few months, and he is a minor, so he's only in for a little bit. So Chihiro isn't happy with the fact that he's gone to jail, he's served some time, because her brother is still suffering. Her brother is still unable to walk, and we know that he ends up having to quit his job because he can't stand up for very long. Our culprit is called Eiji. We also get that little funny moment where she picks Makoto because he's cheap. I would like to know how much it is to commission Makoto, and does he like up his rates a little bit? How much do I have to pay him to be my boyfriend? That scene was the best scene in this episode. Eiji is an unemployed youth, and we get Makoto again going, do you really want to smash his leg? Because it is a very big thing that she's asking to be done. He even says, you'll be sinking down to his level. You're gonna have to think really carefully about this. But she still is convinced that she wants to go through with it. Makoto is back at the fruit shop where he gets a text from Chihiro saying that I am tailing Eiji. And I'm so annoyed at this point because she's going to ruin everything and she's going to act on impulse and make a mess for Makoto. So I was really worried more about my boy. He tells her not to do anything reckless and she just goes, it's okay, I'm wearing sunglasses. Okay, what does that have to do with anything? It's okay, guys, I'm wearing sunglasses. We get a recurring character with the form of Big Ray this episode, and Makoto ends up calling him to try and get some background information on Eiji. At the arcade, we meet Eiji for the first time. The character design on this one, amongst the fact that he looks so sad and remorseful, it doesn't initially shout out, I'm a bad guy, I'm a beast. And I wasn't really feeling the negative vibes from him, so I was struggling to, obviously we do see him go through with an attack, but I wasn't feeling the same vibes I would as if we've seen some of the G-boys or someone getting attacked. Big Ray ends up calling where Chihiro is allowed to listen in on the background information for Eiji. He used a shoehorn for the attack because he was just desperate. He had nothing else at home. He was being extorted for money by his own classmates, so he was being threatened and they told him that he would be the one being beaten up. The classmates who did extort him did get in trouble, but because, again, they were young, it was their first warning, so they ended up with an acquittal. But the scene does like to show us that there is a reason behind the attack. It isn't just a brutal, merciless attack. There's a reason behind our culprit's motives, his actions. I think it's trying to teach us just to not jump to a conclusion immediately. We do get to see Eiji being beaten up in the streets. Chihiro is asked once again, do you still want to smash in his leg? Where this time she's not as sure. The scene is covered in a beautiful yellow and orange filter. We do get quite a few nice sunsets. I love the visuals in this episode. It's quite nice to see those visuals. For the next few days, presumably Makoto stalks Eiji and he ends up wanting to meet the brother, that he can ask how he feels, and he doesn't want to leave the brother out in the dark whilst his sister ends up making a choice, because Eiji may not want to revenge. At the end of the day, the one who gets to make that decision, the one who really has the right to be angry, is Eiji, because he was the one who was attacked. This scene is my favourite scene in this entire episode. Makoto plays the boyfriend, and he even brings a white rose. He is... I love him. Makoto is still my best boy. And he looks gorgeous. I think he looks absolutely amazing in that suit. However, Chihiro, really? Really? She says the suit doesn't quite suit him. I think you're wrong. You are wrong. And the white rose, there is a meaning behind white. White is a colour of innocence, new beginning, and gentleness. All things I think you would agree that fit with our boy Makoto quite nicely. Some background now into Chihiro and her brother Tsukasa, who have no parents. Tsukasa absolutely loves to cook, and we can see that he's got a visible limp. Visually, we can see him hurt. The food does look absolutely amazing. I filmed this whilst being absolutely hungry, so it's not helping me. We know that his dream was to open up a restaurant, but he can no longer do this because he can't stand up for long periods of time anymore. So his dreams have been ruined by this attack. But Makoto asks him, if you met your attacker, what would you do? Where he initially says at first he was angry. It's human to feel that way. Where he wanted death to his culprit. He wanted to stab him. But he started to realise that it would be social suicide for his own self. He would be ruining his own life. He said that he would end up talking to him face to face and maybe he might feel differently, because this is the most truthful line of the entire episode, probably the most important line. Not all criminals are beasts, and it's important to try and not paint everybody with the same brush and try and actually remain to a point where you can try understanding and try at least seeing that not everything is black and white, not everything is one or the other. He said that talking to him would maybe help him see him as a human, where his hatred might change because he doesn't want to be angry forever. He wants to be able to move forward, which is probably the most important lesson here, is that you will be the one stuck forever not being able to move on. You won't be able to live your life. You'll be constantly living in this anger, in this hatred. Makoto says it's all about being a noble person. You don't have to really never forget, but you being able to forgive also helps you. However, we do see that Tsukasa sees Eiji in passing, and we start to see him letting his anger out, where he comes home and he starts to line up the knives and sharpen them. I did get really, really worried at this point. I've even read, Tsukasa's going to stab someone. And this frightens Chihiro, where Makoto ends up having to reenact his plan a little bit quicker. He meets up with Eiji and he tells him, I've been stalking you. He saw him being bullied in the streets, where he says, you need to cut ties with these guys. So you should join the G-Boys. And it's just good old Makoto. Makoto really is best character. He's the best mediator. I didn't really want to see Makoto breaking someone's leg. And he says, if you join the G-Boys, that nobody will threaten a G-Boy. But first of all, there's got to be a deal. You have to meet my client before we go through with letting you be the G-Boy. And we can see how desperate Eiji is. He is so desperate to be bailed out, to get out of his situation, that he says, I want to be a G-Boy, so I will meet your client. And, King! King just appears, like, on cue. It's like, speak of the devil, and he shall appear. King appears, and we even get the whole, you didn't need to come in person from Makoto. But it turns out King wants to see how Makoto resolves this situation. He then allows Eiji to be recognised as a G-Boy from this moment on, and if anyone threatens him, you have to mention King's name. We get our very awkward, hard-hitting scene where Makoto meets up with Chihiro and Tsukasa in a restaurant. We see King stalking, just standing really awkwardly away from everything. And that is when we bring Eiji to the meeting. And this is tense. This is a really tense scene. Makoto playing mediator, but we do see Tsukasa eventually silencing him. Tsukasa says, what did you need the money for? And we start to get a bit of a backstory from him, that he was bullied, he was alone, his mum died, so he was being bullied since he was 5. And it kind of turns into a little bit of a one-upping on the sympathy side. Chihiro then mentions the fact that she's got it a lot worse, but she didn't go as far like he did to attack someone because she had her brother, she had her dreams. This turns into Makoto trying to show Eiji the consequences of his own actions. And Tsukasa had to leave work. We know that he could no longer pursue his own dreams because of what he's done. Eiji needs to see how his own actions have consequences and how what he has done has affected innocent people who weren't even involved. And we do get to see Eiji being very remorseful, and he even says, I'll get a real job, I'll make it up to you. But he ends up being called out for being lazy. King chips in saying that nobody's going to sympathise him because your crime, your guilt is never going to go away. And we do get this very long, silent moment where it results in just Eiji crying, and there's no music playing. So it's a very tense, built-up scene because it is a stark scene, a scene where it's quite serious. We're dealing with some pretty serious emotions, and it's not an easy thing to offer the hand of forgiveness. Tsukasa admits to him. He says, when I saw you, I was very, very angry. It is also human to feel angry. It is a human emotion to feel it. But he also recognises the fact that Eiji is not a beast. He's not a monster. He's not doing it with no remorse. He's not laughing at him. So he chooses that the best path is just to forgive, because tomorrow isn't going to come if he's always carrying around this hate, because this hatred will also harm him. He's not going to forget, but he is going to try and forgive. And the emotional handshake at the end, that handshake which seals it, I didn't know about this, and it's called restorative justice. So we learned from Big Ray that in Japan, they would get the perpetrator to meet the victim. I'm really impressed that they actually do use it. It can't be easy either. Seeing each other, talking to each other like human beings, it aids the recovery of the victim and helps the rehabilitation of the perpetrator. But the highest honour is given to Makoto, that the town is safe as long as Makoto is around. That also feels a little bit foreshadowy, so I do hope that Makoto isn't going anywhere. This is a huge honour coming from a policeman, but yeah, I was very interested to learn that that's the method that Japan used. But at the same time, I'm not actually shocked. I'm not shocked that it's Japan who is trying to take a progressive stance on justice like this, where they try and get people to meet and try and see the consequences of their own actions. It doesn't surprise me. We get our conclusion now, where Eiji and Tsukasa both join together to go and meet the extorters, where they promise to return any money that they have taken without fail and leave Eiji alone. Our siblings end up deciding to open a food truck, and Eiji is roped in to help. And at the end, we get a really nice visual of seeing 2 roses, and we see 1 red. So 1 red rose, 2 white roses. It's really, really nice. It's such a nice visual, and it makes me wonder, is Eiji the red rose? I think the moral of this story is that cast aside your own hatred, and sometimes forgiveness allows you to move on with your life, allows you to be free, allows you to shed that burden. You don't have to forget what happens. No one's saying forget, but you being able to forgive, it lightens the load, I guess. And one of my favourite quotes, which has been said quite recently, it is an eye for an eye and the world goes blind. Violence with violence doesn't get you anywhere. You can't fight fire with fire. It's just not progressive. It's not going to get anywhere. And often enough, it just results in more and more casualties. The end sequence. Oh my God, I'm nervous. I don't know what the hell this end sequence is. Also, Sad Boy Hours. We've got Makoto's sad ending again. The Red Angels beating up the G-Boys. WTF. These next 2 episodes is going to be heightened. What the hell is going on to make the Red Angels beat up G-Boys? So needless to say, I am actually quite scared about what next week's episode is going to bring. Today's episode was great. I thought it was quite a nice little breather from what we had last episode. I think we're in for a rough 2 episodes. I've been telling you guys for a while that in the OP, King is fighting Koichi. So are we about to see that in action? Is Koichi going to attack King? Is King going to attack Koichi? I'm really nervous. I think next week's episodes, I'm going to need more than 2 pages to write notes. This week's episode was a really good one, though. I'm going to try and focus on the fact about today's episode. Next week's episode is going to be next week, but I'm not looking forward to it. We had a good episode, and we've dealt with yet another harsh topic, another real-life topic, and we've also seen quite a good philosophical reasoning given to us. We've seen quite a bit of nice philosophy in action, and We get to see Makoto being the good boy once more and being that mediator. I didn't want to see Makoto break someone's leg. I really didn't want to see it. So I really enjoyed this week's episode. I thought it was handled quite nicely. I hope you guys are doing very, very well. I hope you guys are also as nervous as me about next week's episode. Thank you guys for tuning in. We're coming up to the end of the season. And thank you guys so much for following me. Also sad that this really was the most hated series I aired upon. Every single episode of I released, any video I released on Ikebukuro West Gate Park, just the sea of downvotes just kept on coming and coming. So it wasn't the easiest to keep going and releasing on this series, but at the same time, I really enjoyed watching the series. Thank you to everybody who is following, who isn't just smacking the downvote. It's been a pleasure to talk to some of you guys, and it's been a pleasure to make these videos. So we have 2 left now, so hopefully we just get a spectacular finale of the Ikebukuro West Gate Park. But thank you guys again. I hope you're doing well. Stay safe. Goodbye.